because you're kind of cherry picking who you talk to. But I'm just saying, if you can just be patient before you get there. Okay. So let's look at what your business turns into when you use callers or virtual assistants. Okay. Executive assistants, you might call them. It's not a panacea in the sense that it's a magic pill for your business. Having a team of people or anyone that you're paying requires some level of management and some level of leadership. And that is also another set of skills. So you're adding aspects into your business that is going to take a little bit of time and energy. And that's the commodity that we most cherish, right? Our time and our energy. We utilize both to make money. So we don't want to waste our time and our energy. So we want to make sure that we get good at leading and managing and inspecting what we expect from the people who are reporting into us by giving them specific plans of action and holding them accountable for what the expectations are. Nobody cares about your business as much as you do. And if someone's working as a virtual assistant where you're paying them really a low amount of money, because there's lots of people who do this for a low amount of money, they've got other things going on in their life. They really ain't that worried about you and your business. They just want to get paid. They're going to work 4 hours because they're going to get, $80 or whatever. Or if you, do what I'm going to recommend to you in the Philippines, it's going to be a lot less, right? But even there, they're not going to be nearly as concerned about your success as you are. So don't really expect that out of people. It's an unreasonable expectation to think that you're going to work for someone else and your employees are going to want you to succeed as much as you do. Now, there's things you can do as a leader to try to get them close with incentives, bonuses, the way you treat people. But I never worked for any employer where I cared about my performance and cared about doing well, but it was always because, maybe how much money I could make. And that's really what the contract is. When you rent somebody's time, it really is. It's a matter of what kind of money they can make. And is it a decent work environment, because they have choices too. So I'm going to age myself here and recommend a very old book. I believe it was written in the 80s. But it's so simple, it's such a quick read, and it's so accurate for this kind of reporting relationship. And the book is called The 1 Minute Manager. I think there's probably free PDFs of this online. I don't know, but you could obviously get it from Amazon. It's in the slides here. Let me see. Do I actually talk to this book in here? I guess I don't. So let me talk to the book for a second. The book, it's in the bottom here. So I'll get to that in a sec. So first of all, the first thing is this before we talk about the book. You've got to have a specific work and action plan for how someone is going to utilize the hours that you're paying for. You're renting their time. There has to be some metrics that you're measuring. So hiring anybody for anything does require naming the specific work that you want done and helping define a plan of action. If you don't do it, I'm just telling you, you're going to get less or different than you expect every single time. If you want to play Mr. Nice Guy, Mrs. Nice Girl, and just to be friends and friendly, same thing. It's just going to end up in heartbreak. This is a financial transaction. You're renting their time for money, and here's what you expect them to do in that time. Doesn't mean you can't be friendly, but if you turn it into a friendship, you might be asking for trouble. So that's the first thing, is we got to specifically lay out for them what we want them to do and make sure they understand what it is that we want them to do, have them repeat it back to us, maybe have them sign off on what it is on a piece of paper. And then, extremely important, something that people drop the ball on all the time is they tell them what to do, and it's expected that they do certain things, but they never look. They never inspect what they expect. So the caller or whoever the employee is becomes a little bit lazier because they realize you're not even watching. The cat's out, the mouse is going to play. So let your caller or your assistant know and agree with exactly what activity you expect from them, and that you're going to be evaluating it at some regular interval. For example, the amount of lead sheets that I'm going to share with you that come in per hour. For every hour, there's no reason with all the leads I'm giving you that you can't have this many filled out. And if you don't, tell me why. If there's a reason, maybe we can fix it. I want to help you. Is it an unreasonable expectation? Does the expectation need to be higher or lower? But at this point, I'm expecting to get this many in. Are you going to be able to handle that? And here's what these sheets need to contain. Okay, so that would be a good metric for what you expect. And you have to inspect it. And then also the calls. Do they suck on the phone? Are they getting any better? Are you listening to any of their calls? They can suck at first, but eventually they're going to have to be able to get better and better at the script, because script's not that hard. I mean, they don't have the same script that you have where you have to kind of think through things a little bit more. They just really have to literally just go through it. So, and then record what the seller is saying. So we're going to get them to agree with what productivity looks like. It's not activity that we want, it's productivity, right? The activity of just calling sellers, if they're just calling them, okay, bye, that doesn't mean anything. There's a productivity standard, and that has to do with the way they deliver the script. So we're going to talk to them about what that looks like. We'll help them get more productive and do that in terms of the results, so that it's understood that while you're paying for this activity at first, it's actually productivity that keeps the job. I mean, if they're making all these calls and you're just not getting any deals, they ain't going to be able to stay. So they have to have some kind of incentive to keep that seller engaged, so that we can get the proper information and approach the seller in the right way that helps us get these deals. That means more of your time and energy, right? Because you're going to have to get on calls with them or listen to recordings if possible. And then I'm just going to prepare you for this. You're paying these people very little money. And when you pay people very little money, they might get a better opportunity. Also, it might not be the most important thing going on in their life because it's very little money, and they have to prioritize other things ahead of you. And they either quit, or you have performance issues, or you lose them for some reason. And then you got to start all over again after you spent all this time training them. Okay, so having employees is like one of the, and these aren't really employees, but they're at least contractors at the very least. And that requires management and leadership, like I said, and it requires time and energy, which is a precious commodity. And it might be one of the harder parts of the business, even though it's well worth it when you get people humming and you get them incented properly and they're liking the environment. You make an absolute fortune with using a lot less time and a lot less energy. Okay, that's the leverage you get from having people or having employees, right? Jeff Bezos could not run Amazon by himself. Okay, you can build this business big by yourself, but if you want to do it where you're just totally enjoying your life all day and you're just making decisions, yes, no, write this check, write that check, you're going to give up a little bit of your margin and a little bit of your time to lead people, but you're just not going to have a lot of the headaches that come along with actually doing the deals yourself. So that's where this gets to. Now, in terms of accountability, well, if you don't reward good performance from these folks, if it's just them receiving the money for the contract you have with them, or for whatever you agreed to pay them, or whatever the hourly rate is, if you're doing it that way, if you don't reward what good looks like or reward good performance. And by the same token, have appropriate consequences for poor performance, it's just highly unlikely that you're going to get optimal results. So that's where I go to this book here, The 1 Minute Manager, because it's so simple. I know it's old, but sometimes the old concepts, still work very, very well. The basics still work on a lot of things. I made a stuffed peppers, Italian stuffed peppers. I believe it or not, I pulled out a Betty Crocker cookbook. When was the last time you pulled out a Betty Crocker cookbook? Even though you can get millions of recipes online, but I just knew that was a really good old recipe. Sometimes old stuff still works good. So look, this is what I mean by this, by rewarding good performance and having appropriate consequence for poor performance. And I learned this from this book, and I've tried to instill this even with my children. And I mean, who knows what the results are? They're 18 and 14. I'm just going through the thick of it now. Some of y'all have already had, teenagers, and probably are laughing at me, right? But so I don't know, but I do know this, that using lots of praise for when they do things correctly. Good job making your bed this morning. Good job having your room clean before you went to school. I saw that you used the ice maker to, while you were on the phone, there was a bunch of ice on the floor and you picked it up and instead just leave it there so daddy can slip on his butt. I appreciate you doing that. Those kinds of things, right? Just stupid little things. In the business world, hey, look, you did a really good job on that call. Hey, you got a lot of lead sheets into me today. That was great. Hey, the handwriting on these lead sheets looks great. Literally try to catch the people that you love and the people that are working for you. Catch them doing things right. Catch them doing things that agree with what you want. I ain't about to try to give anybody husband and wife relationship because I'm definitely not the right person for that. However, I would suspect that it's probably going to help your romantic relationships too, if when somebody does something right, you give them a little praise, right? Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Ronnie. Catch people doing things right. Actually make an intentional part of your day to notice things going right. We all notice the things that go wrong because it's irritating as hell, right? But try to notice the things that went right. And when it was through the action of somebody else that you care about, worker, relationship, let them know that was good. And not in a condescending or patronizing way, but it could be just a smile even. Nice. You know what I mean? It's just something like that. So that, because what it does, folks, I'm not trying to play psychologist here. This is all stuff that I've just read and experienced. Feel free to disagree, but what I suspect is that people sort of have an emotional bank account. And when you do praise and you let people know that they're appreciated, you're constantly making a deposit in that bank account so that if you are a jerk, you can kind of make a withdrawal. Like, let's just take Jasmine. It's possible that maybe I've made her feel good on some things so that I could be mean sometimes and she doesn't hate me. Right? Is she even on the call? Let's see. I don't even know if she's on the call tonight. She is. Okay. And I might be wrong. Maybe I bankrupted her emotional bank account with me, or Dan's, right? But yeah, it's a matter of people have emotional bank accounts. And if you're just constantly telling them what they screwed up, you're going to bankrupt that relationship. And with workers, it's especially true because there's not a love connection there, right? It's transactional. It's money for time. So given that, you really, really have to make sure that they understand that they're appreciated. Otherwise, you'll lose them. They'll go work for someone else. They'll stay with you, even if you're not paying them as much as they can get somewhere else because the environment is better. They're giving up a large portion of their day, particularly for full time, right? Have any of you stayed at a job full time just because you like the people that you worked with and you knew you could have made more money better? or you took the attitude of the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I mean, let's be good little devils, so to speak, good little bosses. And let's make people feel good about them doing the things that they're doing right. Now, here's the thing on the poor performance and the consequences for that, because trust me, there's going to be a lot of that. These people aren't as savvy as you with real estate. They're naturally not going to care as much as you do, and they're probably not going to do it exactly the way you have in mind. So if you're reviewing a call with somebody, or going over what their performance was for the day or the week or however you want to do it, don't bombard them with like 6 or 7 things that they just totally screwed up or that weren't at par. Pick 1, maybe 2 things. Let's work on this and this. Let's work on slowing down a little bit on the phone. If you could also just be a slightly more detailed, possibly, with the notes, that would be fantastic. But I got to tell you, great job with, calling the people on time and, filling in this information. The way you said this was fantastic. You want to overwhelm the constructive criticism by a high ratio, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1, the higher, the better, because you're building up. Like think of it like every time you give them a compliment for something, it's putting a deposit in the bank account. Every time you give them a constructive criticism, no matter how constructive it is slightly hurting a little bit. It's slightly taking away, a little bit, even though it's constructive and well-intentioned. It really does work like that, unless somebody's just super, super mature. And most people aren't, including me, as you all know. So anyway, that's a strategy that you can use, and it's written up much more eloquently than I just described in this little book. It's like you could read it in probably, I don't even know, a couple hours, maybe max. Okay. That book that talks about this concept is called the 1-Minute Manager, because you don't have to spend a lot of time managing folks. You just have to do it the right way. And it highlights this idea of catching people doing things right, letting them know. And if you do this, it shows that you respect them. It also buys you an easier time when you have to, give any kind of critique. Okay. So as we go into talking about using virtual assistants, just understand that leadership and management is absolutely an essential aspect of having even contracted workers. Some of y'all who have property managers on your apartment buildings and whatnot, believe me, you got to manage those property managers. Okay. That's a little bit different venue than dealing with virtual assistants, but you got to inspect what you expect from everybody that you're paying. Otherwise, you're going to get taken advantage of almost all the time. All right.